Hi guys, welcome to another battle report. This one, another 4,500 here in Suzhou against my friend Silas again. Silas is running pretty much the same army that he ran in my last battle report. I've made quite a few changes to my list. I had previously gone with that mono change theme, but I came out of the last game not really enjoying playing it in the sense that like I said at the end of my last video, I found it quite sort of unforgiving. And so I found myself going through the Demon Legion's book and thinking, what works? What could I put together? What has synergy with what in a polytheist army? And this is what I came up with. So 4,500 points. Let's see how we get on. Okay, guys. So into deployment then. So we've got an organ gun here. Big unit of greybeards with the Thane and the Lord here. Hold Guardians, another organ gun in the ruins so that it's harder to shoot. That's actually why this organ gun is here. Silas mistakenly thought that organ guns had the volley fire rule with them. I think they're technically called volley guns. And we had played like that until we investigated it in this game. I don't use organ guns as such. So I wasn't sure myself until we found that out. So the organ gun's actually going to be at a bit of a disadvantage being behind this forest, but it does at least have cover against my shooting. Another unit of Hold Guardians and the two smaller Greybeard units here. Silas said pretty much straight away that he realised he'd deployed incorrectly here because this unit's just too slow to be out on the flank. On my side, we've got the Blazing Chariot and the Harbinger of Change here. Unit of Furies, unit of Igniters, the big unit of Tallymen. Quick disclaimer here, I hadn't realised it at the time, but this unit is actually illegal. I'd put the Rending Banner on it as a veteran standard, but of course the Rending Banner is 70 points and a veteran standard can only go up to 50. So sorry about that. I do correct that in the next game. Unit of Fiends here, smaller unit of Igniters here, unit of Beasts, got my Courtesan of Lust hiding behind the hill, and then two units of Horrors here and here. So that's deployment. Okay, so Silas's movement phase then. The big unit here is advanced into the forest, obviously hoping for some protection as cover there. The Hold Guardians have advanced here, and this unit of Hold Guardians has come up against the side of the building. The dwarves here have actually backed off ever so slightly, I think, looking at the previous photograph. And this unit is standing still. So that's Silas's movement 1. Okay, so this is the end of Silas's turn 1 then. It's not been his best turn 1, to be fair. Obviously, he has no magic because he's got no anvil and limited shooting. It's really down to his organ guns. One missed and the other misfired and caused a wound on itself, rolling a double 6. So that was pretty much the end of Silas's turn 1. Okay, so this is the end of my movement phase, and pretty much straight away you can see what I'm going for with this. I've brought the two Igniter units over onto this side of the board. I've put one in the ruins for cover. The other obviously doesn't fit. And I've got the two Blazing Chariots over here. So what I'm aiming to do here is to blast this Hold Guardian unit with loads and loads and loads of shooting. And then try and palm off this unit and just feed it chariots, igniter units. They're a bit expensive for chaff, but the way I figure it, this unit is going to take 3 turns to get over here, and then turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, let's say something like that. It's not going to make its points back. And while that's an expensive way to road bump a unit, it's still a cost-effective way. So that's the plan over here. Shoot this a lot. Over here, I've made full use of my Fiends movement 10. So they've got a full sort of 16, 17, and then wheeled around here. The Furies have moved into the middle where they can be useful later. the plague bearers and the beasts and the horrors have just sort of moved up, and the courtesan of lust is very carefully placed so that she's out of range of this organ gun and out of sight of this organ gun here. I've got to be careful on this side of the board because these hold guardians can take pretty much any unit of mine except this unit here. Those D3 wounds means that they make short work of the fiends, pretty short work of the beasts, and pretty short work of the courtesan of lust. And obviously these units can't make that fight. So when I engage this unit, the tallymen have to be there. So yeah, anyway, that's the end of my turn 1 movement. Okay, so this is a photograph from the end of my turn 1. In the magic phase, I got a 5 and a 2, although Silas channeled. I got the Fate's Judgment spell off on a Hold Guardian and killed one. And I got Will of the Wisp, which is a random movement spell, off on this dwarf unit. Now that gives this unit 2d6 movement, and I figured that there's a better chance of it reducing the movement of this unit than increasing it, because this unit, of course, can march 9, so it's still fairly fast for a big bulky unit, but I figured, average of 7, what are the chances of it being more than 9? Pretty slim. So that was that. Then I put the aspect from that spell on the Furies, giving them +1 die, basically making them cold-blooded if they have to take a leadership test for anything. And then between the igniters and 2 blazing chariot shots, I managed to cause a total, and the spell earlier managed to cause a total of 11 wounds on the Hold Guardian unit. So literally throwing everything at this Hold Guardian unit on the left side of the board. And that was the end of my turn 1. Okay, so this is a photograph of the end of Silas's movement 2, and you can see that Silas has recognised the problem early on here and has started to bring this unit into the middle. I think on his random movement he got 8 inches, so of course he was able to pivot the unit because it's random movement, so I figured 8 inches plus the pivot is 9 inches, so didn't gain anything but didn't lose anything there. He's brought these Hold Guardians again towards the middle, and he's trying to bring both of these units into the game. Over here he's backing off. I think there's some wisdom in this strategy because I've kind of got him ambushed, and I don't think it would make sense for him to go running into the middle of this because it would just be a slaughter, really. So I think backing off here and creating time for these 2 units to come in is, not an unwise strategy, really. It also forces me into some more careful movement to avoid these organ guns with my courtesan. So yeah, that's the end of Silas's movement turn 2. Quick alternative viewpoint of the battlefield here. So this is the left side of the board, and this is the right side of the board. Okay, so end of Silas's turn 2 then. And the fact that organ guns or volley guns or whatever you want to call them don't actually ignore terrain and intervening units and so on is making the organ guns a lot more realistic. I'm very pleased to have realised the mistake that we made in previous games here. So the organ gun on the let me just have a quick look at my notes here. Organ gun on the left here has caused a single wound on my fiends. It did 18 shots. But then when you factor in cover and long range and so forth. So 1 wound there. And then the organ gun on the right shot at the igniters but didn't get any hits, bizarrely. So just out of spite, really, the Dwarf Lord pulled out his pistol and caused a wound on my Harbinger Change. Very unfriendly, that. So that is the end of Silas's turn 2. Okay, so onto my movement phase then. And you can see here what I've done then is move the 2 blazing chariots so they've got shots down the flank of the Whole Guardians, and just in case shooting goes extremely well, I can pop off a shot at an organ gun if needs be. Over here, a slow, sort of cautious advance. I've positioned the courtesan of lust so that she can make a closer dash towards this unit later on, whilst still being covered from this organ gun and out of range of the other one. And I've brought the fiends up just a little bit here. The intention here is that if this whole Guardian unit charges the fiends, because it can see them, then as it closes the door, it would have to charge into the tallyman as well. I think I'm right in that if this unit can't make contact with this one without making contact with this one, then it charges both. But if you know that I'm wrong about that, please do say so in the comments, because I'm not 100% sure, but that was the intention anyway. And other than that, just sort of moving towards the deployment zone here with these scoring units. Sorry, I did forget to mention earlier, the secondary objectives here is the breakthrough, so get your scoring units into your opponent's deployment zone. Whoever has the most at the end of the game gets the victory conditions, secondary objective conditions. So I'm thinking I'm doing fairly well with that, because these units here seem to be pinned in their own deployment zone, and my intention is to continue with this unit, which will mean that Silas is really going to have one unit that he can push through into my deployment zone, whereas I seem to have 3 or 4 that are going to make their way into his. So yeah, anyway, that's the end of my movement. Sorry, quick addition there to the last one. So I had declared a charge against the organ gun with these Furies, but they failed their charge and ended up just there, just bouncing off the house. I think they probably should be a smidge further forwards, actually. I've probably misplaced them, but not to worry. So, in my turn, the magic dice... I got a 6 and a 5. Did a couple of wounds on the Whole Guardian unit with Fate's Judgment again. I put Luke to the west on the igniters on the right here, just in case I didn't decimate the unit during shooting and it got charged, so I wanted them to be stubborn. I failed a scrying, and then Silas dispelled Ancestral Blades, which would have given me repeat shots with my blazing chariots. So that was the end of the magic phase. And then in shooting, 7 wounds on the Whole Guardian unit, because of course I'm penetrating, and while the strength on the penetrating shots isn't great, it is still armor piercing 6 and D3 wounds. So if you do manage to get it through, then it causes quite a bit of damage. 6 wounds from the combined shooting of the igniters as well, and then I think I caused a wound of a single dwarf on the right side with some shooting from my horrors. So that was the end of my turn 2. Okay, so Silas's movement turn 3 here then, and you can see that he continues to bring this unit into the game over here. So these igniters are clearly in a bit of trouble with this unit bearing down on them, but if that slows them down, that's all to the good. He did manage to get a charge off on my Furies, because of course that whole Guardian unit was down to 1, so the igniters weren't blocking it anymore. He has moved this unit forwards, presumably to take on one of these horror units while backing the other 2 units off here. So again, playing for time here to bring this unit in across the side. So that's the end of Silas's movement 3. Quick alternative viewpoint of the battlefield here again. So you've got the left side of the board just there, and then the right side of the board here. Okay, so end of Silas's turn 3 then, and the Whole Guardian here has killed off 3 Furies, but they've passed on the General's leadership because the Furies have the same mark of chaos as the Courtesan of Lust, because she's obviously got an inspiring presence of 18 inches, so well worth having the same mark on them. And chaos players, if you're not one, have to choose a mark for the Fiends. They have to take one, and that's almost always going to be the same as the General, unless there's a specific reason not to. The right organ gun here has killed an igniter, and the left organ gun has killed off a a fiend in the middle of the battlefield there. So that's the end of Silas's turn 3. Okay, so my movement turn 3 then. I've brought these igniters up to threaten this organ gun, volley gun, whichever it's called, here. And I've moved these igniters into the path of this unit here. I'm conscious of the fact that if I can take this organ gun out with one volley of shooting, then their 6-inch movement, possibly even the aspect of witchcraft, which will give them +1 movement, will allow me to bring this unit back down here to block off this big Death Star unit next turn. Here the Blazing Chariots haven't really moved very much, they're just in position for organ gun shots. I've advanced up into the gap here with my Plague Bearers. I'm making this a really tempting charge for him now. Well, that's the intention anyway, because he's reaching a point where he's getting to the end of the board now, and the igniters are effectively cutting off the support coming in from the side. So this is becoming a charge or be charged here. So I've got my Courtesan of Lust ready to move in through the gap here. I've reformed my Fiends so that if the Whole Guardian punches through the Furies, then they might be sort of in a position to do something with him. There's absolutely no way one Hold Guardian is going to pose a threat to the Courtesan of Lust. On the Courtesan of Lust, if you're not a demon player and you see one of these rock up to the battlefield, then there's a pretty good chance that it's kitted out in the same way that mine is, which is that it has an upgrade called the Dance of Death, which gives it lightning reflexes, so it's hitting on 2s. And then there's a lovely cheap magic item in the Demon Legion's book called the Heart Seeker Sword, which is reroll 1s, so it's hitting on 2s and rerolling 1s. And then she also has a bound item called the Token of Lust, which gives her, I think it's Spectral Blades, reroll to wound. So if she can get that off, she's hitting on 2s with rerolls and wounding at strength 6 with rerolls. So she's a bit of a beast. So there's no threat anyway from this one Hold Guardian on her. Over here, the beasts are moving up for support, and rather than charge this unit, I'm thinking to ambush it, really shoot it down a little bit more with these 2 horror units, and then possibly finish it off. So that's the end of my movement turn 3. Okay, so end of my turn 3 here then. I got a 4 and a 1 on the magic phase, and I tried to cast Look to the West on this unit, needing, I think I needed an 8, and I failed the cast with 3 dice. But then, dice games, what are you going to do? Incidentally, if you've got, if you are a new player to the game and you've got any small units like this, spells like Look to the West, anything that sort of creates stubborn on small units is a really, really useful spell to have. I only need one of these igniters to make it through, and if they're stubborn, then there's every chance that they're going to hold up this whole unit for a whole extra turn, which is a hugely powerful thing, especially if you can position your road bump unit so that the frontage of this whole unit can't make it into combat, because you can see that as he charges me, he's not going to get all of his models into combat there. So like I say, if you can get one to survive, that can be really influential. Cut off another turn of movement, keep this big unit slow and unable to engage, is the plan. Anyway, elsewhere, Silas dispelled Fate's Judgment on one of the organ guns, which was a good move. The igniters only caused 1 wound on this organ gun here, The Harbinger of Change only caused a single wound on this organ gun here. And then, although he did get one with his Hellfire, so 2 wounds on that organ gun. And the Blazing Chariot missed. So I think that just goes to show that a lot of people have said, well, you know, your Blazing Chariots and your Igniters, they're overpowered. They're overpowered when they work. And they are. It's true. They are very, very powerful when they work. They're a bargain for their points. But sometimes they don't work. And sometimes, you know, you get that strength 7 and you think, wow, this is going to be amazing. And then 1 wound becomes D3 wounds and it's still 1 wound. So great when they work, but they don't always work. So what else happened? On the left, I killed a few Greybeards with these Igniters. And the horrors between them managed to kill a single Greybeard. So we're down to 8 here. I was really hoping to get this perhaps down to 5. Because then what I was thinking, message coming through, because then what I was thinking was, you know, if I can just kill 1 in combat when, another one, when it charges me, then I'll be steadfast and it won't. But anyway, that wasn't to happen, just killed the 1 there, so that was that. That's the end of my turn 3. Okay, so Silas is 4 then. He's charged this unit of Igniters, he's got to get them out of the way, so that's fine. He's stuck in combat here with the 2 Furies, so nothing going on there. And then he has charged this unit of Tallymen, not Plague Bearers, Tallymen, 9th Age vernacular, here, and he's positioned this unit so that he's got this model in base contact here, but he's not leaving me a lip here for the Courtesan of Lust to get into base contact, because of course these models are 40 mil wide and mine are 25 mil wide, which means that he can get all 4 into base contact with 5 of mine without leaving anything over the side here, so that's quite clever. Over here he's charged the horror unit here. That's the right unit to charge because he doesn't want to be running into this, you know, all this trouble over here. So heading off this way, if he can punch through this unit, you never know, he might even make it all the way to my deployment area if he's got that triple move march. I'm not sure whether the small unit of Greybeards has. I think it does, but I'm not sure. Anyway, that's the end of Silas's movement turn 4. Okay, so you can see from the photograph here that we've missed a photograph for the end of Silas's turn, so I'll just explain to you what happened before going on to my turn. It always seems to happen, doesn't it? Always miss at least one photograph. So the 2 organ guns both targeted the igniters here, but both failed. This organ gun on the left actually rolled a 6 and a 5, so it was -1 to hit, as well as going through the forest and skirmish. So it was actually somehow ended up on 7s to hit, and then this organ gun simply underperformed. So not been a great game for the organ guns. In combat over here, I did a couple of wounds on the Greybeards. They did more damage to me, but I passed the leadership test, so that was fine. And then the Lord's block in the middle here smashed through the igniters and sort of moved across the boards this way a little. One Fury died to the Hold Guardian here, the single one remaining, which meant that this unit of Hold Guardians is locked in combat still with 1 remaining Fury, which of course meant that in my turn I'd be able to charge it. And so into my turn then, and what happened was, at the end of Silas's turn, I did a combat reform and moved this unit over just to give my Courtesan of Lust just a corner on the Hold Guardians just here. So then in my turn, I got a flank charge on the Hold Guardians, a charge with the Courtesan of Lust, a charge with the Fiends on this 1 remaining Hold Guardian here, and a charge on the organ gun with the Blazing Chariot. And then you can see I've brought the igniters, into the path of this corner of the Death Star unit here, meaning that they can still see this organ gun here in the ruins and shoot at it. They're going to get flank charged. It doesn't matter. They're going to die, and it's still value for money really. And I've got my Harbinger's Blazing Chariot here, so I'm combating this one, hoping to shoot off this one, and then I'm thinking this unit, it's going to hit me, and then it's going to overrun this way. There is a risk that as this unit overruns, it might clip my Fiends, but that's going to take some time, and by then I expect this unit to have broken. So if it does overrun and runs into this unit and then carries on running into this unit, I don't think this will be here by then. And then over here on this side of the board, I've charged in my second unit of horrors. I'm just hoping to finish off the 3 or 4 dwarves that are left here. Just to score the points, really. Horrors shouldn't really be able to take on dwarves, but the fact that they're down to sort of 3 or 4 might mean that the weight in numbers might do it for me. So yeah, that's the end of my movement 4. Okay, so end of my turn 4 then. If I go left to right, you can see that the Blazing Chariot here took out the Organ Gun, which was to be expected. And then the Flamers and the Harbinger of Change between them took out the Organ Gun that was in the ruins. The Fiends predictably gutted the one remaining Hold Guardian. They're much higher initiative than the Hold Guardian. They're hitting it on 3s. Wounding on 4s, but they've got the barbed claws rule, so they get +1 to wound, so they're hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s. Over here, the Hold Guardians did some damage to the Tallymen, but the combined impacts of the Courtesan, the Tallymen, and the Beasts meant that the unit really sort of got its arse handed to it, really. So the Beasts reformed, because I'm conscious of the fact that this dwarf unit was now threatening my rear of my horrors here. I was hoping that I might, charge, rear, rank, might, finish off the dwarves, but they're quite resolute, those dwarves. So I've reformed here with my beasts, ready to counter the effect of this unit, and I chased with both units here. My Courtesan actually has Swift Stride, so I was on 3D, well, the 2 best of 3d6 and 2d6 here, but the Hold Guardians managed to outrun both. So there you go. That's the end of my turn 4. Things seem to be going quite well. Okay, so this is Silas's movement turn 5. I will mention that the Hold Guardians did do 3 wounds to the Courtesan of Lust, which is giving me pause for thought here, because if I charge again, there is that danger that that they might still drop her, because of course they are strength 6, 2 attacks each, and each wound becomes D3 wounds, so she could drop. There is a risk there. They are still, even when they're down to, as many as you see there, they are still a threat to something like a Greater Demon. Anyway, so the Hold Guardians rallied in turn 5, and then the big block here charged my igniters in the flank. Over here, the Greybeards charged into the rear of this unit of horrors. So that's the end of Silas's movement turn 5. Okay, so end of Silas's turn 5 then. And you can see that the combined efforts of the Greybeards has wiped out my horrors. That I suppose was to be expected. And Silas has smashed through the igniters here. I was quite fortunate here. This overrun into these fiends was a 7, but he rolled a 6, so he finishes an inch away. So that's played to my favour really nicely here, because that's the end of his turn 5, and he can't maneuver around the house. He's too close to it. So all I have to do here is just back off, and this unit's got to spend a turn just sort of dithering. So yeah, that's sort of the end of Silas's 6. He's picked up a few points with the horrors and the igniters, but what this now means is that going into my next turn, I'm going to be able to charge this unit here with my beasts. I'm going to be able to charge here. I'll have a scoring unit in Silas's deployment zone while his is in the middle of the board. and I'll just bring these units round to shoot at this unit, see if I can get some lucky decimation. Doubt it very much, because this unit is very tough and very strong, but there's nothing left on this side of the board for me to be needing to deal with, which is quite a fortunate position to be in, really. Okay, so my movement phase then, and you can see the courtesan and the tallymen have charged at the Whole Guardians here. I'm thinking, well, you know what? I expect her to rip apart. I expect her to do 6 wounds. To be honest, she's hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, and then she's wounding on at least 3s. So I'm taking the chance there with that. So yeah, that's that. In the middle, just backing off. This unit can't do anything to me, and like I say, just sort of swooping around here, trying to get off some pop shots. And the beasts have charged into this unit here. I'm 4 wide because of my reform previously, which is going to give me a maximum number of stomps, I hope, at the end. So that's the end of my movement. So, end of my turn 5 then. The Courtesan of Lust got scrying on herself, making herself harder to hit. And Silas dispelled Spectral Blade, so she wasn't re-rolling to wound. That was the right call on Silas's part. The Harbinger of Change and the Blazing Chariot did nothing to this big unit, which was to be expected. 6 wounds from the Courtesan of Lust on the Hold Guardians, plus a few more from the Tallymen, Charge, Banner, a couple of ranks, and the Whole Guardian unit basically got smashed. It broke, and the Courtesan and the Tallyman both pursued, and they all ran off the board at the end of my turn 5. Over here, the Beasts won combat against the Greybeards, but the Greybeards held. So that was the end of my turn 5. Okay, so Silas is 6 then. You can see the dwarves have just reformed for posterity in the middle in his movement phase. And that's pretty much all that can be done in dwarf movement 6. The other units locked in combat here. Silas did remark that what he should have done afterwards was reform this unit, just in case this unit broke, but he forgot about it. But to be honest, I don't think it would have made a huge amount of difference. So yeah, anyway, end of Silas's movement 6. Okay, so end of Silas's turn 6 here then, and you can see that the Greybeards weren't able to withstand the 4 pestilent beasts, and they broke and got caught, and the beasts overran into the flank of these Greybeards here. So that's the end of Silas's turn 6. Okay, so my movement turn 6, and the chariots have just come closer to close down the range. Probably a futile gesture, can't really put a dent in this unit. The Tallymen and the Courtesan have both come back on. The Courtesan's used her movement 10, she can't march because she just reappeared on the board, but she used a movement 10 so that she can attempt to boost this unit just to finish off the Greybeards here. And I think that's pretty much it for my movement 6. Now, I either I've accidentally deleted or I didn't take a photograph for the end of the turn, but basically these units didn't do anywhere near enough damage to the big dwarf unit in the middle, which is fine, and the beasts smashed through the Greybeards, overran and caught them. So at the end of the game it was a 17-3, because obviously all the dwarf points bar this big unit here have been taken, and then I've picked up the secondary objective for having a 1 scoring unit to 0 scoring units down here. So yeah, a very enjoyable game from my point of view anyway. Not sure Silas would say the same. I think that I'm quite impressed with this list actually, because it was sort of a mishmash really. I wondered how much synergy there would be in it, but the fact that I've got Fate's Judgment and Spectral Blades as bound items, and then I've got a reroll on my Harbinger of Change plus 2 spells from my Courtesan of Lust means that I've got 5 spells, and that's general with, you know, when you factor in the 2 bound items, that's going to give me some combat buffs and some damage spells for earlier on in the game. So it seems to strike quite a nice balance, really, even though it's a polytheist list, which sometimes don't always have a lot of synergy to them. So yeah, I was quite sort of happy about that, really. I remain a little bit puzzled about what to do with that big unit, because this is sort of my, I think, 3rd or 4th game against this dwarf army now, and every time I've had to do the same thing to it, which is basically feed it scraps and keep it busy. So I think what I'll probably do is have another look and see if there's anything that I can do. Maybe I can make a Death Star unit of my own somehow. Not sure. Need to look into that. I've got to address the illegality of the rending banner anyway. So maybe something to do with that, because that rending banner on strength 4 Teleman is just brutal. Especially when you've got that 6+ poison with armor piercing too. It's just horrid. So yeah, maybe something to do with that. So anyway, that was the end of the game. Hope you enjoyed it, guys, and thanks for watching.